Hey, Melissa, how you doing?
Good. How are you doing, Amy? Great to see you.
Good to see you too. It's Friday morning here at the end of July, and I'm thrilled that we get to just spend a couple minutes together just chit-chatting about the relationship that the Child Neurology Foundation and PTC Therapeutics has had over now many years. Before we get started, why don't you just kind of tell everyone kind of what your role is at PTC and how you got into the role?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have been with PTC now for 2 years. I'm a patient engagement liaison with the US neurology team. My dad was diagnosed with alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency, which is also known as hereditary emphysema. And I was diagnosed with that as well. So I started doing grassroots advocacy work. And this was in parallel when I was working at another biotech. Ironically, I was working at the biotech that produced the therapy for that for alpha-1. And what I found was there was a gap between what we did and why we did it. So I transitioned from a role of being a scientist by training into advocacy, and then working for PTC and in a full-time advocacy role. So yeah.
I didn't know any of that about your personal story. And I also didn't know that you're a trained scientist.
Yes.
Tell me what are you trained in? I mean, in terms of the science, because this is so interesting because you are one of our CAB liaisons that does bring so many different perspectives to a conversation. This is all kind of connecting now with me. So what's your formal training?
Yeah, so my background's in biology and physics.
Okay.
So I've always been a science nerd, worked in rare disease discovery since right out of college, always been wanting to help people from the science perspective. So yeah.
I just love that when you get like a new kernel about someone. So the other thing I would say about PTC is they were really one of the first industry partners that has a very large pipeline in rare disease, really connect with the large cross-section of rare disease and child neurology. I mean, now we know that 90% of rare diseases have a neurologic component. 75% of them start in childhood. So it's like kind of the cat's been out of the bag, but PTC, you all strategically identified that years ago. We are contacted here at the foundation by a lot of different industry partners trying to kind of figure out when they're new to the neurology space, what's the landscape like and who's who. And sometimes that's why partners join our corporate advisory board. But I know with the breadth of your pipeline, you get to interact with lots of different advocacy groups and interact with lots of different corporate advisory boards. Why did PTC decide to join and continue to join year after year the foundation's corporate advisory board?
Yeah, so one of the reasons, actually there's multiple reasons on why. The biggest one is CNF's vision and values really align with PTC's vision and values. And when I look at a CNF and think of and reflect on my own personal values with integrity and trust, there's so many synergies there. Also, another reason is the leadership. The leadership with CNF is so collaborative and everyone has an equal footing. So we come in, we share ideas, we can work together. So it doesn't matter who you are, what you bring, but it's all about what is that end goal and how do we achieve that end goal together.
Yeah, well, those are really nice comments to say about us. I'm glad that that's how you feel, because that's definitely our intent. I mean, we all want our children and our families to have access to these innovative therapies to improve their lives. And to think that an advocacy organization could do that without really having balanced collaborative partnerships with those that are bringing forth the innovative agents, it's just kind of seems like Swiss cheese. Like it's like a duh. Like, why wouldn't we?
Exactly.
And you're actually one of our most vocal CAB partners, and you've been recently really participating in our Better Together for Kids initiative. Do you want to talk about that and how that conversation is going and any reflections you've gained?
Yeah, I love that working group. I love that it's industry and advocacy, and I feel that I bring a different perspective wearing a rare disease hat, wearing an industry hat, and then also I work for, I volunteer for a patient advocacy group called Rare Science. I connected with them through my rare disease journey. And so hearing some of the challenges from an industry side and an advocacy side, I totally understand where individuals are coming from and where those gaps are happening. And it just lights a fire in me.
It's just been more kind of like these intimate conversations. And I've been so impressed that like everyone's been like, oh, I've been having that same question, or I've always wanted to talk about this. It's like giving people permission to talk about things that they have just been guessing at for a long time. So yeah, I've been jazzed about how it's turned out, and I'm glad it's been, you know, productive and positive for you as well.
Absolutely. And I like how you captured that, giving people permission to ask the questions and have the conversations, because it does feel like a safe space and I can share what I'm thinking, even if it doesn't make sense or you want feedback, or it's just that brainstorming. You have to see my agenda. I print out the agendas before the meetings, and the notes that I take on it. It literally looks like a firework of thoughts.
I know, I think we're onto something here.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm going to be excited to see what the group decides to do, you know, kind of next with it, like how we want to, like, not just keep the conversation to ourselves anymore, but kind of bring it to the larger community. Let's talk a little bit now about some other projects that PTC and CNF have worked on over the last couple of years. Do you have a favorite?
Absolutely. Shortening the Diagnostic Odyssey. So absolutely my favorite. I'm going to circle back to my dad. His diagnostic journey took him 15 years. And it was a oncologist that had mentioned, have you ever been tested for alpha-1? And my dad said, what is that? Mm-hmm. So by the time he was tested, he had 10% lung function. He was already on supplemental oxygen, and that's when he got onto therapy. So for me, I was kind of lucky because of my dad's journey that I had a roadmap. But for so many individuals in the rare disease community, they don't have a roadmap. And their diagnostic journey, we don't want it to be 15 years, 10 years, 100%, yeah. Let alone a year. You know, we want to be able to identify quickly and get them on therapies or enrolled in clinical trials to make sure their quality of life or any type of treatment could cure them.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit it on the head. And one thing I think we're trying to do with this initiative over the last 2 years is to help the community maybe refocus the entry point into getting the appropriate diagnosis and have that diagnosis be early. I think a lot of the work that we've done as advocates, especially in the rare disease, is focused on, you know, once you get that rare diagnosis, but you don't get led into the medical healthcare system because of that diagnosis. You're led in because of the emerging symptom that is showing the presence of that rare disease. And what we see now is, and we know that a majority of those leading symptoms are neurologic. So we have to help the families within the neurology space, as well as the providers, start to be triggered. Okay, so reoccurring seizures, you've got developmental delay, you've got some emerging attacks, like those aren't just, the symptoms can't just be treated, but let's begin to understand the underlying etiology.
Absolutely, and I just want to add to that. So when you talk about, you know, genotype and phenotype, a lot of the times we're treating based off of phenotype. And one of the things that PTC has done is launched PTC Pinpoint, which is a free genetic testing for AADC. So individuals that may have cerebral palsy, from a physical symptom perspective, the underlying cause may be a rare disease like AADC.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's exactly it. It's our current president, I love it when he talks about the fact that it's like a new age right now in pediatric neurology, that it's no longer about treating the symptoms. It's about understanding the underlying etiology. And then now we're having innovation come forward that actually allows for that underlying etiology to be treated. So it's a new day. It's a new kind of terrain that we're all navigating together. I want to talk a little bit about my favorite project that we've been working on together, and that is CHICA, Child Neurology. So our medical decision support system, children's health through computerized automation and child neurology. And it's a lot. It's a big project. It's talking about, changing clinical behavior using health information technology. But why I love this project with PTC is that it, again, if you know the backstory of how you all came into it, it just really illuminates your approach to partnering with advocacy organizations. So this was prior to you, but your boss, Karen Galamlos. I randomly sat down next to her on a couch at a patient advocacy conference in 2017. And, she's a fur, you just feel her energy. And we started chatting and I'm like, who are you? And can we have a conversation down the road? Because you are an innovative big thinker. And we ended up setting a couple of calls. And she got it that the whole, at that point, there was a lot of industry partners that were still really focused on early identification for their disease state in rare disease. And the foundation was really starting this conversation with industry about rising tides lifts all boats. If we can help the whole community reach early diagnosis and appropriate treatment, your disease state will also be in that mix, right? But it's going to need to take.
Absolutely.
And CHICA and the CHICA Child Neurology is a tool to do that. And so when we said, hey, we're going to build this is going to be a multi-year, multi-million-dollar initiative. She jumped out. I literally think the words just came out of my mouth and she was like, we're in, what do we need? Your medical affairs came forward with content. Marcoms came through to help us, kind of kick it off. It has been such a joy working with PTC as one of the initial partners on that project, because I think Karen, again, what you're talking about, alignment and values, like she got it from a very foundational level, that it wasn't just about this tool, but it was with this creating this new rising tide within the rare child neurology space. And it's been just a joy. Now it's built. Now we're at the fun part of it. It's going into clinics and we get to, see the outcomes of how it hopefully changes care and improves the patient centricity of that care visit.
How exciting.
Yeah. Did you know that backstory?
I knew some of the backstory. I didn't know that you two met at a patient advocacy conference sitting on a couch and the conversations that happened there. So that is very neat.
Yeah, it was so organic. But that kind of goes back to what we're talking about with the Better Together for Kids. It's all about the relationship and seeing each other as humans first and where you align to get the work done. We're just really thrilled and we're really thankful for your partnership here at the foundation. And thanks so much for joining me today in this conversation, especially on a Friday. Thank you so much. This was a great conversation. And yeah, I'm glad you got to learn a little bit more about me too. Yeah. It's always so great when those little tidbits come out that you're like, well, that actually makes sense of why she said that in this one conversation, or where your passion is on another. So it's great. Good stuff. All right. Well, looking forward to seeing you hopefully this fall at CNS or some other, hopefully face-to-face meeting. We'll be there.